Hello, boys and girls. Today we will be reading chapters 4 and 5 of The Night at Dawn. Just to recap 1, 2, and 3, Jack and Annie had just gotten back from their adventure in dinosaur time. Neither of them could sleep very well, so they're up early in the morning at dawn before the morning sun even rose, and they both couldn't wait to get back to the treehouse. So that's where they headed, and before they knew it, Annie had made a wish after seeing a book with a castle and a knight, and they were in that time. Okay, so as they were exploring, Annie just really wanted to go experience it in real life, while Jack was trying to read and figure things out in a book. And while he was doing that, he lost Annie. So he goes into the castle after Annie, and let's see what they get themselves into for chapters 4 and 5. Okay, so here we go. Into the castle. "I'm going to kill her," muttered Jack. He threw his stuff into his pack and moved towards the drawbridge. He hoped no one would see him. It was getting darker. It must be night. When he got to the bridge, he started across. The wooden planks creaked under his feet. He peered over the edge of the bridge. Were there any crocodiles in the moat? He couldn't tell. "Halt!" someone shouted. A guard on top of the castle was looking down. Jack dashed across the bridge. He ran through the castle gate and into the courtyard. From inside the castle came sounds of music, shouting, and laughter. Jack hurried to a dark corner and crouched down. He shivered as he looked around for Annie. Torches lit the high wall around the courtyard. The courtyard was nearly empty. Two boys led horses that clopped over the gray cobblestones. Nay! Jack turned. It was the knight's black horse. Psst! He peered into the darkness. There was Annie. She was hiding behind a well in the center of the courtyard. She waved at him. Jack waved back. He waited till the boys and horses disappeared inside the stable. Then he dashed to the well. "I'm going to find the music," whispered Annie. "Are you coming?" "Okay," Jack said, with a sigh. They tiptoed together across the cobblestones. Then they slipped into the entrance of the castle. Noise and music came from a bright room in front of them. They stood on one side of the doorway and peeked in. "The feast in the great hall," whispered Jack. He held his breath, and as he turned in awe, a giant fireplace blazed at one end of the noisy room. Antlers and rugs hung on the stone walls. Flowers covered the floor. Boys in short dresses carried huge trays of food. Dogs were fighting over bones under the tables. People in bright clothes and funny hats strolled among the crowd. Some played funny-shaped guitars. Some tossed balls in the air. Some balanced swords on their hands. Men and women dressed in capes and furs sat at long, crowded wooden tables. "I wonder which one is the knight," said Jack. "I don't know," whispered Annie, "but they're eating with their fingers." Suddenly, someone shouted behind them. Jack whirled around. A man carrying a tray of pies was standing a few feet away. "Who art thou?" he asked angrily. "Jack," squeaked Jack. "Annie," squeaked Annie. Then they ran as fast as they could down a dimly lit hallway. All right, so chapter 5. "Come on!" Chapter 5, Trapped. "Come on!" cried Annie. Jack raced behind her. Were they being followed? "Here, quick!" Annie dashed toward a door off the hallway. She pushed the door open. The two of them stumbled into a dark, cold room. The door creaked shut behind them. "Give me the flashlight," said Annie. Jack handed it to her, and she switched it on. Yikes! A row of knights right in front of them. Annie flicked out the flashlight. Silence. "They aren't moving," Jack whispered. Annie turned the light back on. "They're just suits," Jack said. "Without heads," said Annie. "Let me have the flashlight a second," said Jack, "so I can look in the book." Annie handed him the flashlight. He pulled out the castle book. He flipped through the pages until he found what he was looking for. Jack put the book away. "It's called the Armory," he said. "It's where the armor and weapons are stored." He shined the flashlight around the room. "Oh, man," whispered Jack. The light fell on shiny breastplates, leg plates, arm plates, on shelves filled with helmets and weapons, on shields, spears, swords, crossbows, clubs, battle axes. There was a noise in the hall. "Voices! Let's hide," said Annie. "Wait," said Jack. "I got to check on something first." "Hurry," said Annie. "It'll take just a second," said Jack. "Hold this." He handed Annie the flashlight. He tried to lift a helmet from a shelf. It was too heavy. He bent over and dragged the helmet over his head. The visor slammed shut. Oh, forget it. It was worse than having a 5-year-old on your head. More like having a 10-year-old on your head. Not only could Jack not lift his head, he couldn't see anything either. "Jack!" Annie's voice sounded far away. "The voices are getting closer. Turn off the flashlight." Jack's voice echoed inside the metal chamber. He struggled to get the helmet off. Suddenly, he lost his balance and went crashing into another piece of armor. The metal plates and weapons clattered to the floor. Jack lay on the floor in the dark. He tried to get up, but his head was too heavy. He heard deep voices. Someone grabbed him by the arm. The next thing he knew, his helmet was yanked off. He was staring into the blazing light of a fiery torch. Alright, so chapter 5. Okay, boys and girls, we will be doing our journal response now. And remember, we are working out of our blue journal packet. It matches up. It says The Night at Dawn. And we just read chapters 4 and 5. Okay, so for our responses today, we have 2 questions. Remember, make sure you're lining up with chapters 4 and 5. It says, what do you think grabbed Jack? Okay, so the way I'd like you to answer this is I want you to start it off with the prompt, I think. So you could say, I think, maybe it's Annie you think grabbed Jack. You could say, maybe I think Annie grabbed Jack. Or maybe the knight grabbed Jack. I think the king of the castle grabbed Jack. Whatever you think, make your prediction, and just start your sentence off with I think. Okay, so we'll have our capital, our words are going to make sense, and our punctuation at the end. So the next one, what do you think will happen to him? So again, I want you to start with I think, and you can say I think, fill in that answer, I think this, or I think blank will happen to Jack, okay? So please use that complete sentence, use the prompt, I think, capital, words make sense, period at the end, and after that, you can go ahead and draw your own picture. Now, boys and girls, there are illustrations in this book, so maybe you want to try to copy the pictures that you see in this book. Go ahead, give it a try, test your creativity, test your drawing skills. Maybe you just want to draw yourself with Jack and Annie. That is okay too. I encourage that. Okay, so that does it for our reading and journal response today. Join me tomorrow for chapters 6 and 7.